So I was watching this video the other day of this girl, this woman, this young woman, and she was giving some advice and speaking this truth and being really authentic. And I found myself admiring her, like really looking at so much of the way that she was giving of herself and the way she was being so vulnerable. I even caught myself saying, like as if I was speaking to her through the video, saying, "Your hair is so beautiful." Like I wanted to touch it. And I wanted to tell her like how smart her words were, how they were impacting me. I wanted her to see how beautiful she was, not just in appearance, but the way that she thought, the way that she thinks, how much she wants to help other people, but also how much she shows up for herself. And I knew that at the time that she was creating the video, I could feel it, that she had no idea about all of this. But here was I, this person, seeing it and wanting her to know and just like being so proud of her in that moment. And the crazy thing is that that person that I was admiring was me. I was looking at a video of myself from a couple of years ago. My hair was longer. I didn't have anything like crazy spectacular on. I was just showing up as myself, and I was so in awe of myself just because I was really like speaking from my heart, and I was very aware of what I had done up to that point in order to show up like that. And I was surprised that I had showed up like that. But more than that, the advice that I was speaking in that video, thinking during the time that I had recorded it that I was speaking it for other people, I needed it myself. Like when I was re-watching this video after a couple of years, I was listening to the advice that she was giving me, and that she was me and she was my younger self. Like, yeah, maybe not when I was a child, but it was still younger than I am right now from a couple of years ago. And I remember that day that I took that advice from her, from me, from she, from that video, and I lived it. I owned it. I took it in, and I wanted to thank that younger version of me for recording that video, for telling me that advice, for thinking that way, for showing up for me again when I don't even know, I don't remember why I clicked on the video to watch it again, but I needed it so much. And it just really hit me that, like, I've heard a lot of speakers and advice out there in books and self-help kind of material talking about how we can channel our older, wiser selves and think about like what we as an older version of ourselves might tell ourselves now, or what we in this moment, the advice that we would give to our younger self. But it really surprised me that I was like, why can't we ask our younger self for advice as well? Because I actually think that my younger self was pretty damn smart. She did things that I don't know that I would do now. Like, I think about how courageous I was, the way that I traveled by myself, the things that I did to like further my education, how I showed up as a teacher, the places that I ended up in just because I was following a sign and a message, and how I ran with that, and the things that I accomplished, but also the advice that I was learning back then just from myself and my own experience without being tainted by what society or people or aging, we get these messages that like when you're a certain age you need to act like this or you need to be like this. But my younger self didn't have that. She didn't even think like that. I didn't even have a mom that ever pushed me to think like that. Like, I had this like very free thinking, open-minded, like I loved so many people and things and experiences, and I wasn't letting anybody like taint that and make it seem like negative and put me in a negative mindset. And I want to recall that part of me. I want to bring her back whenever I need her. And I don't think that just because she was younger than me that she was less mature. I think in some ways she was actually had a more refreshing mindset, and she was really imaginative, and she believed she could do anything and everything. And I think it is really worthwhile for us to tap into that part of ourselves. If you can resonate with what I'm saying, like yeah, of course, there are parts of us that when we were younger, we now have learned so much, and we wish we had these lessons now to be able to show up differently when we were younger. But there are things that I wish that now I would show up the way that I showed up when I was younger. Like, I was more courageous. I didn't let things stop me and frighten me the way that they do sometimes now. And I want to keep that with me. I want to like be able to tap into it whenever I need her, whenever I need that. And I wanted to share this insight that I had because in my last video, I was talking about the quote, "These are the good old days." Like right now, the way that I'm thinking, I love that I'm recording this right now because these are the good old days right now. And maybe my future self will need this insight years from now. Like, we'll need this reminder that I'm speaking out right now. And I don't want to close myself off from the knowledge and the wisdom, even though we don't usually think of wisdom coming from our younger selves. But I don't want to close myself off from the wisdom of my younger, freer, open-minded self. And I just think that if we could all remember that there are so many stages of us, there are so many stages of life that we've lived, in this one lifetime. There are so many ways that we have thought, so many ways that we have shown up. And I think that we tend to learn that in order to get a new lesson, to get more wisdom, we need to get it from somewhere outside of ourselves. Or we need to have more experience to be able to figure that answer out. And we might need to read more, take more classes. Like, I know I had that mentality from things around me, society, culture, like, you have to go to university. Like, again, my mom never pushed that on me at all. But I felt like culture and society were saying, like, you have to learn this. You have to take in all this information. Like, even now, I sometimes think I don't know enough to, like, show up for these videos or write what I want to write, or, you know, sing what I want to sing. Like, I think that I need to read all the books and play all the music and, like, learn all the little intricacies before I can actually share anything. But actually, when I listen to my old videos and things that I wrote years ago, I'm like, that's the information that I need right now. And I think it's so powerful to know that there are parts of us that our younger selves had, that we still can have, that can help us grow. It also reminds me of when I was teaching. Like, I loved teaching. And I told my students when I left teaching that, like, they thought that I was their teacher. And yes, I was. But actually, children taught me more than a lot of other things, people, life lessons that have ever taught me. Like, because children have this, like, refreshing mindset, and they don't let fears and doubts and, like, comparison get into their minds at a young age. They're just playing and having fun. And, you know, it's because of the children that I taught and their mindset and the way that they taught me, like, to just go after whatever it is that they they want to do and to play. Like, that's the reason that I started experimenting with dance and writing and, like, being more imaginative. It was the children's mindset, the child's mindset, that really inspired me. And I was a child once, like, and it's like we forget that. And I was a younger version of myself once and many times over. Like, whether it was just from last year, that younger version of myself, or from 10 years ago. But that mindset that I cultivated even at that age still has the power to influence great things in me right now. And your younger self, maybe there are things that you did or the ways that you showed up when you were younger that you also want to still be able to tap into. And I kind of am doing this video to remind you that you can. Like, to not let anybody or anything make you think that you have to find all the answers outside of yourself, or that your time has passed, or whatever, for whatever it is that you want to achieve, or however it is that you want to show up. What if you were to ask your younger self her advice? Like I said, there are probably things that your younger self did that you don't want to repeat again, because maybe those things, like, you were acting out of not knowing enough, and that didn't necessarily put you in the best place. But there are probably things that your younger self did, and how they were being, and how they showed up in life, that you do want to tap back into. And I'm just here to tell you that you can. I recommend writing something or doing a video, or, someone gave me the advice of writing a letter to myself of why I want to write, what it is that makes me want to be a writer, and what I want to share, like what is the purpose of me wanting to write, and to seal it up, put it in an envelope, and read it years later. And I do still have this letter that I wrote years ago, and once in a while I read it again, and it's like my younger self reminding me why I want to be here as a writer. And now I think it's like, as someone sharing these videos and sharing this advice, like, find a way to record what you are like now in this moment and the kind of advice that you want to keep with you or share with other people. And then make sure you can save it or savor it in your body or memory or whatever it is, in writing, in a painting, however it is that you express yourself, so that you can look back at it and be given the advice by your own self, to yourself, to your older self. And I promise you, like, the feeling that it gives you is so energizing and invigorating, and it's kind of like, it's inspiring, and it's a turn on. Like, when I was watching the video of me giving the advice, and I was describing this girl with like long hair, I wanted to touch her hair and I wanted to tell her how beautiful she was. Like, I was turned on by my own advice and by my own face and by my own energy. It was like not even a physical thing, it was like an energy thing. And that version of me was not in front of me in the same room, it was on a camera. But I still felt the energy, the building up of something again, of that version of me. And it really makes you want to be proud of yourself and get out there and do the things that you want to do, and realize that you have it inside of yourself to give yourself that advice. I recommend recording a video, writing something, painting something. Record you as your version now, so that you can look back at it in the future and use the advice of your younger self, not just of your older self, but of your younger self, to remind you how you want to live now and in the future. I hope this makes sense. Thanks all for listening.